is that Clara is planting new sod in her yard. Has anyone ever seen sod before?
I have.
Sometimes houses have sod. Turn around. Sometimes you can buy it at landscaping stores or at Lowe's or Home Depot. Raise your hand if you've seen sod or you think you know what it is.
I've seen it at Lowe's.
You've seen it at Lowe's?
Wait,
Well,
it's like sort of like pre-made grass.
it is pre-made grass and it's sold two ways. It is not curved, it's real grass. They grow it, they kind of cut it like almost like a carpet. And then it can be sold in square pieces like this, in big pallets like this, or sometimes it's sold in a roll. And so what people do, instead of putting seed down and waiting for grass to grow, they buy grass that's already grown and lay it out in their yard. You do still have to water it, still a plant, and then it grows into your yard. A lot of times, if you buy a new house, the front yard has sod in it. Sometimes you can tell, sometimes you can't, but sometimes you can tell because you can almost see the little squares where it hasn't grown in quite right, or quite yet. Victor?
People use it where, if they buy a new house and there's like no grass in it, like they're maybe getting it built.
Yep.
They'll like get some of the sod and get a bunch of it like those and like lay it on the ground and stuff.
Yeah, I'm thinking about getting sod for my house just because it's a lot of dirt and I really need grass.
And it's at Lowe's because we're always because my dad like stuff for his work.
Yeah.
He needs like air holes for like.
Yeah, that makes sense. Landscapers definitely use sod when they're working on people's houses.
And I think sometimes he gets it for like a job if people want that.
Yeah.
It may be possible.
Yeah. Jackson?
My across the street neighbors, they have sod, but it's not squares, they're like long strips.
They're rolls.
Yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes sod can come in squares like this, or it can come in rolls and they kind of roll it out. Almost like a carpet, but it's made of grass, which is kind of crazy. Michael? We can get to our task. Now that we know what sod is, what are some questions you might have for Clara? We know she's trying to put sod in her yard. What are some questions we might want to have for Clara? Blada, what's a question you might have, or what's something you're wondering?
Like, whenever you put it down, does it, like, automatically just, like, blow away just when you do it, or, like, you have to look up on it for a while?
Sod's pretty heavy, so it's not going to blow away, but you might want to say, hey, Clara, do you know how to take care of it? That could be something we're wondering. Lincoln, what are you wondering?
So, when it's, like, ripped off the ground, how does the grass not die?
It will eventually. It's got a pretty small window. So like they cut it and then they take it to Lowe's and then it's only good for like a couple of days before it does start to die because those roots can't get water.
Of course.
Ashlyn, are you wondering anything? No? Shelby, what are you wondering?
How big is her yard and how big are the sod pieces?
How big is her yard? How big is her sod pieces? Will, what are you wondering?
What's the area of the yard?
What's the area of the yard? Harper, what are you wondering? What's the area of those pieces? John, what are you wondering? That's fine. Michael, what are you wondering?
How does sod, if you cut it off already, how does it, like, if you put it back on your yard, how does it grow in? Or does it never?
It will. So the roots will grow in to the ground. It just takes a couple of days. All right, we're going to get some more pieces of information. She's still buying sod for her yard, but her yard measures 6 yards by 7 yards.
Wait, what?
A yard is a type of measurement. 1 yard is 3 feet. We know what a ruler looks like, right?
Yeah.
That is 1 foot. We need 3 of those, and that is called a yard. Her front yard is 6 yards by 7 yards. How many square yards of sod will she need? Let's draw a picture. Draw a picture of her yard in your notebook. Don't make it gigantic. We got other things to do. All right, so I hope that you drew some kind of rectangle. And then we labeled the dimensions. 6, the shorthand, you're going to have to wait for it, for yard is YD. You could have written the whole word yard, that's fine. By 8, nope, not 8, sorry, 7 yards. If you put your dimensions the other way, like if you put 7 here and 6 here, that's fine. So we know the dimensions of the yard. That's where she's putting sod. All the square pieces are going to fill in her front yard. How am I going to figure out how many square pieces of sod she needs? Yes, no? How am I going to figure out how many square pieces of sod she needs? Mason, you're facing the wrong direction. This was just like your homework last night. How are we going to figure out how much sod she needs? We're filling in the inside with squares. How am I going to do it? Lincoln?
No, I just put in 6 times 7.
Why did you use 6 times 7, Lincoln?
Because that would give the answer to how much salt she needs.
Well, why didn't you do like 6 plus 7?
Because times out from
No, thank you.
that's not good.
How did you figure out that 6 times 7 was going to be enough? You're totally right. I just want to get you thinking a little bit more. Lincoln's got it. It is going to be 6 times 7. How do you know? How do you know? Brayden, how do you know?
Because if we were to fill this in the boxes, it would say, like, there would be 7 rows of 6 or 6 columns of 7.
Yeah, it would look like a math tool we've seen. It would look like an array. We would either have 6 columns, if you made it like I have, and then 7 rows, or 7 columns and 6 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I've got a fast array using my dimensions. Could I keep drawing all those squares in? Yeah. But we're efficient. We already know a trick to quickly count those using our skip counting methods of 6 times 7. Is anyone really good at 6s?
No.
No, I'm good at 7.
I'm good at 5.
I can count
I'm
7s.
so good at 5s. Jackson, do you think I could use my 5s to figure this one out? How could I use my 5s to help me?
You can switch that 6 to 5.
Okay, so Jackson says, I'm going to say 5 times 7 instead of 6 times 7, because it's pretty close. I'm writing, that means you are writing.
Answer 5 times 7.
What is 5 times 7?
I think about
No.
35.
35. Jackson, is my answer 35?
No, and then you add 7 to it.
Then I add one more group, because this is 6 groups of 7. I figured out 5 groups of 7. I need to figure out 1 group of 7. What is 1 group of 7, Jackson?
7.
7.
40.
So 35, which was my 5 groups, plus my extra group to get me to 6 groups.
42.
42.
I'm good at skip counting by 6.
Awesome. You could have definitely done that. It's just not my
I
strong
did a
suit.
lot of 7.
I'm definitely much better at my 5s. So how many square yards of sod will she need? 7? 42 what? 42 square yards. We have to put our unit, what we're counting, in there. not 42 pieces of grass, not 42 seeds, not 42 pine cones.
It's not 42 yards squared.
It's not 42 yards squared. 42 square yards of sod.
No, 42 something.
So far, so good.
Not two.
That's
Not-
it's not.
Oh, I forgot we were doing this part. Within her yard, the same yard you just drew, Clara wants a garden. You can use as little or as much space as you want for her garden. So if you need to draw a new yard, that's fine. Actually, let's go ahead and do that because I know we wrote inside her yard. So remember, she had a 6 by 7 yard space. That was her front yard. Inside that space, she wants garden space. So we need to draw a spot for her garden to be. Where would you like her garden to be?
In the corner.
We can make it as big or as little as you want. Shelby, where do we think our garden should be?
On the side.
Okay, well, let's just do one garden space. So you want the left side or the right side? The right? All right, so this side. How big should it be? Jackson, how big should it be?
Like 1 square.
1 square yard? So 1 square this way?
No, like 5 square.
5 squares? So if I've got 7,
7 square.
that would be 5 would be way over here.
7 square.
You want to take up the whole yard?
It would no, it would be 6 yards. It would be 6 yards.
You want 5?
Because there's 6
All
yards.
right, so we're going to go to 5. How tall do you want it? You have 6 yards. How tall do you want her garden?
Another 5 square.
Another 5? So most of her yard is going to be garden. So she has 5 yards by 5 yards. Is that what you're saying, Jackson?
I have no idea.
What would be the area of this garden that Jackson just created?
Do we write that?
Yep, I'm writing that means you were writing.
Can we do a different type of garden?
Just give me some seconds, Gwen, please. What is the area of the garden when we're in construction? What is the area of the garden that Jackson just created? I should see lots and lots of hands. We know how to figure that out. 7? Yep, this is the garden that Jackson created right here, a 5 yard by 5 yard. What's the area of that garden? 25 square yards. Jackson made a really big garden. Really big. It took up almost her whole yard. I want you to draw another option for a garden, but I want you to make it smaller. So redraw her yard. She's got another 6 yards by 7 yards. This time I want you to do another option for a garden, but I want you to make it smaller than the one Jackson just came up with. Hang on, Gwen, I know. It could be an option. I wanted a smaller
I'm gonna tell you that before you start going.
Thank you.
I did like 4 yards going down.
Okay. How far across?
5.
5. So we still did a really large across, but we only did 4 yards going down. So 4 yards going down, 5 yards across. What area did you come up with?
20 yards.
20, not 20 yards,
20 square yards.
20 square yards. Who else did a smaller garden? Maybe even smaller than Gwen's. Will, what'd you come up with?
4 yards by 4 yards.
4 yards by 4 yards, so it might have looked like this. Will, did you come up with the area of a 4 yard by 4 yard
think it's 18 square yards.
So close.
16.
16 square yards. Anyone do another garden, Sean?
One yard with ocean, 2 yards going this way.
Across. Alright, so we did a 1 yard by 2 yards. What was the area of that one?
2 square yards.
2 square yards. That one's way tiny in comparison. Alright, Harper, what else did you come up with for her garden?
1 yard by 1 yard.
Oh, 1 yard by 1 yard.
That's 1.
What is the dimension, or sorry, the area of that?
It's 1 square yard.
One what?
1 square yard.
1 square yard. Can you put it on my table, please? Mel? 1 square yard. Lincoln, what did you come up with? A 3 yard by 3 yard. Do you have the area for that, Lincoln? It's what?
5.
Not 5. 3 by 3. So if I'm thinking of it as an array, I got 3 groups of 3. So close. 3, 6. What's going to come next, you know? 9. This is 9 square yards. So we have lots of options for her to have a garden. You might have something different on your paper, and that's okay. All right, we are going to look at this task. This is the task you're going to be working on today. This is going to be an independent task, but we are going to do some sharing. So make sure you're doing your best work. You just started your own lawn mowing service to earn extra money. You already have 2 clients. Does anyone know what a client is? We might have heard that word before, a client. Victor, you know what a client is?
If you're like at a store
Uh-huh.
and like a client is like someone that's buying something. Like if you're at a grocery store and you're checking in your stuff to buy it.
Yep.
You're a client.
Sure. Will, you want to add on to that?
I was just going to say, my dad's a real estate agent, and I hear that word almost every single day, and I have no idea what he's talking about.
So Victor's got the right track. A client is somebody that you are helping, usually to do a service. So it's not going to necessarily be at the grocery store, but you, raise your hand if you've ever gotten your hair cut. So you are a client of your barber or your hair cutting place. They do a service for you. You might go to the same hair cutter or barber every single time.
I do.
If you are a real estate agent, Will, a family might be talking to your dad over and over and over again so that they can buy a house. They're getting that service. So they are like a customer, but they're not buying a thing per se. They're getting a service. Your dad is offering to help them buy a house. Victor's dad is offering to make landscaping. Barbers are cutting hair. That is their service. All right, so you've already got 2 clients. You've got Mr. Hill and Miss Alexander. They both have rectangular shaped yards, but they're very different rectangles. You've decided to charge $1 per square yard of lawn mowing. What are you wondering? What are you wondering? This could be a business that you start this summer. As a 3rd grader, you could do all these things. Michael, what are you wondering?
How many square yards there are? Because if they're all $1, that would be how much money you get.
How many square yards there are? Michael's already thinking, okay, if it's $1 a square yard, if it's a tiny yard, like 1 square yard, I'm only gonna make $1. But what if it's a really big yard?
Like 9.
Could make lots more money. Will, what are you wondering?
How big are the rectangles?
Yeah, how big are these yards? Harper, what are you wondering?
How are they different?
How are they different? Yeah. Victor, what are you wondering?
To make a lot of money as landscaper, the houses that big yards that they're telling you to mow, you can, like if they're big yards, you get a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But if like they're small yards, you like, not as big, like maybe like a small trailer house you're mowing, or you would get paid like $150. But if you're like doing a medium house, that would be $300 to $400.
Yeah, so similar to what Michael's thinking, the size of these yards is gonna depend on, or is gonna impact how much money I'm able to make.
Like really big houses, like
Mr. Hill's yard is 4 yards by 6 yards. On your graph paper, if I'm drawing that, I'm going to count 4 boxes, and then I'm going to go down 6 boxes. There's my 4 by 6. Miss Alexander's yard is 3 yards by 8 yards. You're going to want to draw that one as well. The question that you're thinking about is which yard will you make more money? Because that's really what we want to know. We want to know which yard is going to get us more money. Your task, everything that I just read is right here. You're going to get this piece of paper. You're probably going to do most of your work on that graph paper or grid paper that I gave you. But your answer needs to go here. When you finish, or if you finish, there's a bonus task on the back. I want you to... I haven't given it to you, love. I want you to try that out. We're still looking at Mr. Hill and Miss Alexander. When you get both papers, you can go ahead and get started. All right, to help some of you out a little bit, just to get started, if I was doing, I think it's Mr. Hill's yard, he has a 4 by 6. So on my graph paper, I might count down 4 boxes. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's my length of 4. And then I need 6 yards across. If you did it the other way, is that a problem?
No.
No. Your yard can go however you want it to. Now I'm going to count across. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So he has a 4 by 6. 4 yards by 6 yards. There is Mr. Hill. Just to get you started. If you already did that for Mr. Hill and you're ready to move on to Miss Alexander to figure it out, go for it. Again, if you figured it out, try the challenge task on the back side. I just drew Mr. Hill's yard. It was a 6 by 4. You should have already figured out the area. You have graph paper. Could you have counted those boxes?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you have to?
No.
No. What other strategy could you have used? Instead of counting boxes, what could you have done, Mason? Okay, but that's still counting, isn't it? It's just another counting strategy, Harper.
Like doing 6 times 4.
Mm-hmm.
Or
What was the area of Mr. Hill's yard? You should have that on your paper. That was the whole front task. Lincoln?
24 yards.
Nope. 24 square yards. Squares are important because we have squares that we're counting. Because that was really hard to count. All right, we got Miss Alexander. She had a 3 by 8. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's my Miss Alexander. I'm going to label it and put my dimensions. If you don't have your dimensions on your graph paper, you're going to need those. What was the area of Miss Alexander? What was her yard area? A, that stands for area, equals, ooh, I don't see a lot of hands. 7? 24 square yards. Which one are you gonna make the most money?
I mean, you get the same amount.
Which one are you gonna get the most money, Will?
You'll get the same amount of money on both yards.
It was a trick question. You should have written you're gonna get the same amount of money at both yards. That is your answer on the front page. You're gonna get the same amount of money. You should have a sentence on that front page. You're gonna get the same amount of money.
I would do both.
Let's look at that challenge one. So turn so you're looking at the challenge problem. It looks like this. If you're talking, please stop. Our challenge says Mr. Hill and Miss Alexander were impressed with your work. They would like to hire you to install a fence around both of their yards. How many yards of fencing will you need to complete their yard?
Like combine those into one giant.
Let's do them separate. So Miss Alexander and then Mr. Where does a fence go? That might be helpful in thinking about how to count this. Ashley, where does a fence go? It goes on the outside. So do I need to know the area? Yes. Is my fence going to go in the area? No. It's going to go on the outside of my shape. Let's start. You want to start with Mr. Hill? Find your Mr. Hill on your graph paper. We're going to count. No. We're going to count the spaces around because that's where my fence go. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Keep going. 7, 8, 9, 10. Keep going. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Keep going. 17, 18, 19, 20. So a fence is equal to 20. I was not counting squares. Fences don't come in big old squares. They come in just like lines. So it's not going to be 20 square yards. It's just 20 yards. Do we see how I counted my fence? I want you to try and count the fence for Miss Alexander. Count in your head because it's hard to hear when you're counting out loud. When you've got it, give me that secret thumb. How many yards of fencing does Miss Alexander need? Raise your hand to tell me if you figured it out. How many yards of fencing does Miss Alexander need? If you were not counting, that's a problem. Logan, did you figure it out? 20. Not 20, nope. Mason? 22. Nope. Let's count together. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. You were right. I just counted. It was 22. I thought it was 21. Whoa! I thought they had the same area. It doesn't matter about the area because were we counting the inside? No, we were counting the outside of the shape. So this one, a fence is equal to, Mason was correct, 22 yards, not square yards, because I wasn't using squares. 22 yards. That was tricky.
I did that on my own.
That was tricky.